Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is the last part of our castle ruin series, and in this part I'm going to go ahead and add the sunbeams, and we're also going to add all the finishing touches. If you're following along traditionally, check out part 1 in this series, where I have a list of all the pastels that I use and all the different tools and the paper that I use for traditional pastels. We're going to be using Infinite Painter for Android, and we're going to go ahead and start by working on the shoreline just a little bit and adding a little bit more of the dark browns to the shoreline just to give it more of a texture, like there's mud and dirt up against the grass and up against the edge of the lake. And you can use your pastel pencils for this and take a sort of a dark brown color, probably maybe a burnt umber color or whatever the name would be on your pastel brand, and just kind of add dark lines on the edge of the shore and under the grass, and it just makes it look like it's the mud and the rocks that are up against the grass and right next to the shoreline. And you can go ahead and smudge it out a little bit with your blending stomp, but you kind of want this to look sort of rough and rocky, because that's the idea of what we're trying to portray here. So I'm adding some dark blue too, that also makes it look like there's little rocks on the edges, and maybe even stones from the old castle walls have fallen in the water or something, and then add a little bit of green around it again, like the grass has sort of grown up around these stones, and you just use your pencil, probably your pastel pencil, or you can use from the sketch category or from the paint category in Infinite Painter, and we just want to give that pastel texture. And then we're working on the foreground wall just a little bit, and I'm adding a lighter color to it, but I'm not going to leave it that bright. I want to add some different colors to the old stones. Add some browns, add some purple, add some blues into the rocks, and smudge these in with your blending stomp. And you can also use your rag or paper towel or whatever. And then I'm kind of blending in merging the layers here, because I want to go ahead and make a new separate layer just for the highlights, to try to make them stand out a little bit on the rocks here. And also I merge the layers too, because you can only have a certain amount of layers. Of course, you can have a lot in Infinite Painter, but before it starts to affect the memory on your device. But Infinite Painter is a very good program for adding lots of different layers, but it will depend on how many layers you can have. It will depend on the device that you have. And so I'm working on the rocks again, smudging in the colors all together, but not blending them all completely away. We want them to have different variations and have sort of a mottled-y, jagged, crumbly look. And do this to the rocks also that are in the middle ground. Just work on them a little bit. And I'm just kind of smudging it in right here. You'd use your blending stomp if you're following along traditionally. And just go ahead and work on blending in the grass a little bit here. And I'm working on the castle, just blending it in a little bit, blending in the grass a little bit better, making pockets of dark and light in the grass, just to give it kind of a look of uneven ground and all the rocks and the dirt that are underneath the grass. And you want to go ahead now, since we're in the final stages, and add the Twiggy Bushes in front of the crumbling castle ruin rocks here. And just go ahead and take your pastel pencil and just make real thin twiggy branches, and this just gives it a sense of depth, and it sort of pushes back the castle wall rocks too. And then I want to go ahead and add some more highlights to the castle. So I'm taking a very light yellow color, and you can use your pastel pencil for this, and then use one of the sketch brushes on very small for this, and make sort of a brick and stone texture where the light is going to be hitting on your castle. So you want this to hit on the edges and make a broken line for the fallen walls, and just make it look real jagged and also incomplete. You don't want them to look smooth. You want jagged spots on the walls and on the old castle walls that have fallen and are crumbling, and just extend that on out to all the stones that have fallen off of the castle. And you can use a light brown also for in the shadow part of your castle. Go ahead and use a light brown, but still make sort of brick-like texture there. And I'm doing this on the back, and I'm using a darker brown here. And again, you're going to be using your pastel pencil for this, because this is all detail work. So I'm adding sort of a suggestion of a window in the back there, and just kind of giving it the look of brick and old stone in the back here, and just kind of adding sketchy lines. We're not making it really detailed, but we want to give the suggestion that it's old stones and old bricks, and also we want to show that the castle is fallen down in the back. So I'm putting some old stones and things in the background here behind the castle, and that just makes it look like it's fallen off the top of the castle, and or maybe it was part of a wall that was around it. And I'm adding a little bit of a touch of highlight to it, and then I'm adding sort of a pathway, you know, a sort of a stone pathway. Maybe there was an old stone pathway that led to the castle, and you can use a light brown color for it, and just make sort of jagged lines. You don't want them real uniform, because this was probably just paved with stones, and you can add a little bit of a touch of highlights on them. Here I'm working on the shoreline again, and adding a little bit more of the light color to the shoreline and making the ripples, and then I'm adding a little bit of some dark color because we've darkened the grass on the edge of the shoreline, so you want to put that in your water there, and just kind of throw in some brown and just kind of glaze it in. Don't use a big sharp line here for that. You want a sort of a smooth glaze look, and I'm just adding that back into the water there. And then I'm also using a little bit of dark brown underneath the water line, and this just gives it a indication of the mud and the bank that's on the shoreline. And I also want to add, like, there's a few rocks that have fallen into the water, maybe extending out, so I'm using a little bit of a dark color there and adding a little bit of some water line around it. You just want it to look like there's a few rocks that have fallen into the edge of your lake. Maybe the lake has risen and it's bigger than it used to be, so the wall, part of the wall is underwater maybe. Just to give interest to your picture. You want to go ahead and just show little details like that, just to make your picture look interesting. And here I'm just kind of working on the shoreline a little bit more, adding a little bit of color into the grass. Again, you don't want solid green, so throw in some yellow ochre. And then I also want to add a little bit of detail to the mountains behind the castle. So I'm just making indications with a dark blue color of maybe canyons that are in the back and real rough ridges, and just little indications. It's not going to be real detail, but we just kind of want to give the indication of a really rough ridge in the mountain behind it, and you can use your photo reference. I was following along with that photo reference to just kind of give it a look that I wanted in the background. And then we're going to go ahead and start with the highlights. And here I'm merging everything and starting on a separate layer, and definitely have a separate layer for this when you start doing the highlights, because you may have to go back and change them a little bit. And so what you want to do is lower the opacity on a light yellow color and use the Julienne tool and just make real straight lines if you can, sort of coming out from that one corner of your picture in the right hand corner, and like it's shining through a hole in the clouds there and just hitting on your castle. And you don't want this to be opaque, you want it to be transparent, so keep it very light looking. And if you're doing this traditionally, use your pastel stick and take a very light touch and just go across it on your paper, and try to keep the line straight if you can. And if you mess up, just go back and take your original colors and put them back, you know, the best you can. Draw your picture back in, and that's how you correct it. But try not to mess up on this. And I know that's hard, and I messed up on this one. That's why I put it on the separate layer. And I'm erasing and going back and straightening the rays a little bit, and trying to make them not quite as opaque, and make them look like they're kind of shining through different spots in the cloud. You don't want to make a solid yellow wash there. You want it to look like the blue is peeping through a little bit, and like it's just individual sun rays shining through different levels of the cloud. And then I wanted to go ahead and sign it here, but of course when I sign it, that doesn't mean that I'm finished, because usually I see something else that I need to fix. But if you go ahead and sign it, it means you're getting near the end of your painting. So I wanted to go ahead and look at it a little bit, and then I decided, well, I'm going to work on the rays a little bit more. And I probably should have just left it alone at that point. I mean, when do you know that a painting is finished? Well, when the next stroke messes it up. So then you have to go back and fix it and fun stuff like that. And I probably should have just left it alone there, but I didn't. I wanted to go ahead and just work on it. I thought that the rays needed straightening out just a little bit more, so I worked on it again a little bit more and went back and just kind of tried to erase them out a little, because I thought that I got maybe too much on my painting. And if you're doing this traditionally, you can kind of smudge it out with your rag and then go back again. Like I said, put some of your original color down, but just try not to mess up the first time. If you can keep from it, just try to get it done right the first time, which is hard to do. So I just kept on working a little bit, and at first I pulled the rays past the castle a little bit and thought I would make some of the rays look like they were hitting on the other shore, but then I decided that I didn't like that after a while. And so here I was trying to get the rays straight again after I was going back over them again, and so I was erasing out a little bit. And this is why you do this on a separate layer when you're using digital, is because otherwise it's going to be really hard to correct. So make sure this is on a separate layer, because then you can go back and correct these things. And so I was working on it again, just trying to get the lines straighter and look like they were hitting on the tops of the old castle tower right there. And just go ahead and, work till you get it back the way you wanted it before. Sometimes it's hard when you mess up to get it back the way you wanted it, but I kept on working on it and just step back from it and look at it from a distance. And when you shrink it down on your digital device, that's kind of like stepping back from a painting. You want to step back from a painting just to see what it looks like. So I went ahead and erased all the sunbeams except for the ones shining on the castle, and that just helped. It made it more the focus of the painting. So here are some examples of past pastels that I've done, and the first one is actually a digital painting that I did in Infinite Painter, and then the rest of them are actual pastels. And so I want to emphasize that in order to protect your pastels, if you're going to do this traditionally, you need to go ahead and put glass over your painting, because if you don't, the dust will get on it, and then there's no way to really clean them off, because basically it's chalk dust is what your whole painting is, so you're not going to be able to separate it from the regular dust. So make sure that you put glass on your pastel paintings. Even if you put fixative on your paintings, it still won't keep all the dust off, and it won't protect your paintings if something scrapes up against it and messes up your picture. So this is the end of my Castle Ruin series, and everybody stay tuned for a brand new series coming soon. So thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions or requests, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.